So the evolution started way back 1981 with the adoption of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. But the way in which these rights were framed in this charter, or in this African Charter, it was in a more charitable approach, which was looking at persons with disabilities as objects of charity and mercy, and not really rights holders. So from that aspect, we came up, there was now a time when specific charters, protocols were adopted. For example, the protocol, the Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, which also contains provisions on the protection of the child with a disability. Then we also have the protocol on the rights of women. So we've had a number of charters, protocols, legislation at the national level and at the regional levels. But it is only when with the introduction of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that we saw a lot of African countries ratifying and signing up to this convention. That when we saw a shift from the charity and medical model of viewing disability to the rights-based perspective. And it was from this that the realization came about that there should be a regional specific protocol.
Yeah, so I'm going to take you to the issue of education. I was reading this quote from a study that there are as many as 32.5 million children with disabilities in low and middle income countries that are out of school. And I think it's a very big number. So my question is, one, what are the barriers that keep children with disabilities out of school? And two, what can be done to encourage inclusive education? That means promoting disability inclusion in regular schools so that they can benefit from the diversity.
Yes, that is very, very important, because you find that they are compared to the other children that are not disabled. Children with disabilities are most of the time not included in school. We do have a lot of countries that have come up with policies and legislation that is talking about inclusive education. But when it comes to the practicality on the ground, most of these schools do not have the infrastructure that can accommodate these children. So starting from the physical infrastructure and also looking at also the teachers are not well equipped to handle various impairments that these children may have, starting from the family level. If the family does not see the value of education in the child who is disabled, they're looking only at the barriers and looking at the limitation that this child has, it means that this parent will not see the importance of taking their children to school. But the biggest barrier is about physical infrastructure. Sign language interpretation is one of them, but it can also be as easy as somebody just having maybe assistive technologies, maybe like Braille, maybe like adaptable computers, so that somebody who's blind, a child who's blind, can learn by listening using a computer that is adaptable.
You know, all this is, you hear about the challenges that people with disabilities face, especially young children. And you mentioned such terms as adopting laws and ratifying laws. But most of the challenge, I think, what I've heard people refer to is the implementation of these laws to protect these children, to protect people with disabilities. How do you ensure that that happens now that they are applied?
Most countries in Africa are very quick to adopting these laws, ratifying the laws. But when it comes to the actual implementation, that is actually a very big challenge. One, because they say that before a law can now become it can be applied into the domestic law, it needs to be domesticated. But that means that there is not only one law, it could be education, employment, social policy. So there's so many laws that need to be revised. So it's a step by step, and it is also now upon the civil society organizations to push for these governments to ratify, to domesticate into their local national policies. So the delay is maybe because they do not have funds, or they do not have the technical capacity to review the laws. They do not have the people that the political will is actually sometimes not there.
The ADP is a binding treaty, which, as we understand it, 15 countries, if they have the political will to sign upon it, the whole continent will have to abide by it. What is the status on that right now? And do you think these countries will be motivated to back it up with political will as well as resources?
And that is yet to be seen, because this is now over 2 years since it was adopted. I think it was adopted in 2018, but up to now, there has been, the continent has not yet achieved the 15 required signatures. Out of the 54 countries in the continent, only so far, when you look at the website, it's only 3 countries that are showing to have ratified the convention so far. 15 have signed up, but not yet ratified. But there are other countries that have already ratified and deposited the signatures, but those have not yet been shown as having deposited at the African Union. So it was also upon the African Union to quicken up the process of
sending them
depositing these signatures, yes, so that more can be achieved through the African Disability Protocol, because it promises a lot for the continent in terms of disability rights.